Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Indie Show. Someone's trying to call me. So, Cathy, hi. And everyone
Hi.
else who's watching this live or on the recording, thank you for tuning back in. Indie Law has kind of been on vacation for the last couple of weeks. We're really excited to be back, and we're coming back pretty strong because we've got a pretty awesome guest with us today. So Cathy Derus is an accountant and a bunch of other things that we're going to get into and kind of what the differences are between all of those. But Cathy, tell us a little bit more about what you do, the story behind everything, and why you decided to have this niche of small businesses that you wanted to work with.
Yeah. So thanks again for having me. I had a great time just kind of like talking about our business stories over coffee about like a month ago. So I am a CPA and I have two firms, Brightwater Accounting and Brightwater Financial. And so I'm a CPA. It's kind of boring for some people, but I really love working with numbers and spreadsheets. And, initially I'd started out in public accounting like a lot of people, but I needed this creative outlet. So, I was reading blogs at the time, got married, reading wedding blogs or, decorating food blogs and everything. I knew that wasn't quite my thing. So I started a personal finance blog. Why not? And then, that kind of evolved into lifestyle blog, mommy blog. We have two kids now. But I always kind of had this desire to help people. I wanted to be self-employed. So I was like trying to figure out a way to do that all together while still being a CPA. So, networked with different people, talked with different people, and, eventually started an accounting firm that works with creatives so that I can, help those people. And, they have, some of that same backstory as me as well. It's kind of like how I got here.
I think it's really nice when you can build a business where you are so similar to your target market.
Right.
Because it really allows you to kind of know what they want and don't want and what their pain points are.
Yes. And it was also, I knew that I had something a little bit more unique and, something that I could, relate with people on. Yes, I'm an accountant and, you're an attorney. We're not like, it's not the most glamorous field ever, but like, it's one of those like necessary evils, like things that have to get done. But we can approach this in such a way that, is more approachable. It is, creative. Like I can make jokes about different things. And I was like telling one of my business friends, who, we kind of like, just talk about, our businesses and whatnot and just like, shoot ideas off of one another. I was like, okay, when we have two kids and we watch Moana a lot.
I love Moana. I don't have any kids.
Okay, so we watch Moana and I was like, and we listened to the soundtrack on repeat. And I was like, my journey is like Moana. Like, I don't know if we want to go into all of this.
Yeah, let's do it.
But okay. And they were like, you need to get this in a blog post. I was like, I know, I just haven't done it. Okay. So, I know I want to do it. So Moana, they were telling her you should do all these like certain things. Like, you should be, what's safe is on the island. Everybody has their roles. That was kind of like corporate America. You start off at this level. You work your way up. You do the same thing over time. It's boring. It's predictable. But, and a lot of people are happy with it. But Moana always had this like desire to like do something more, to go explore. And like for me, that was entrepreneurship and, being a business owner. So I wanted to, I had some of those false starts like Moana. And I don't want to like ruin the movie or anything.
I love this.
I haven't quite like figured it all out yet, but she had her false start. She's like, I'm gonna take my boat and it's gonna be great. And then, she capsizes. So, I've had some false starts. I needed some encouragement. I was just, people get distracted by the shiny objects. There are those, Maui helps, but like he was also a distraction, Tamatoa. He's a very big shiny.
You really thought through this. I love it.
So yeah, and I was just like, and I can use this as a way to kind of like talk to people and like, relate.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because starting and running your own business isn't for everybody,
Yes.
but I really like your analogy. Like you're constantly stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yes. Yes.
It's new and unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in a way, it feels like home and
Yeah.
it's drawing it to you. And I don't want to get too into the weeds on what happened while I was gone.
Yeah.
But for a while, people thought that I was having some like stress related illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came out of it, one of the things that I realized and like the doctors agreed with was that I'm actually not that stressed out by my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people hear, oh, you run your own small business. That must be so stressful. You must, be crazy all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you
It
have
can
those
be.
moments.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're in a place where it fits,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of feel like you're doing what you should be doing, it makes it
Mm-hmm.
all worth it. So hi
Yeah.
to everybody who's watching
Hey,
live.
thanks for joining
Um,
us.
and I know that Stella had a comment earlier saying that she knows what she wants. So maybe you guys can chat later.
So into inventory. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Inventory. It follows me everywhere. But like, I should have known, like, because as a kid, I would inventory my Halloween candy. Like, literally, I would like dump out the bag, sort it all out, count it all out, write it down. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that. Stella just shared it into her leather group. Thanks, Stella. That's a good note. You guys, please share this out if you can. This is I'm really, really excited because, it's legal and accounting a lot of times go hand in hand. A lot of times I get questions and people are like, hey, what should I do here? And I'm like, that's not really a legal question.
Right. I get the same. I was like, I'm not an attorney. Like, I can give you the overview, but I will have you talk to Joey.
So I like it because you have a passion for accounting
Yes.
and tax and all of this other stuff that we'll get into that a lot of people don't have. I know I don't have.
Why not?
But you can lean into your own skills and enjoyment there. And I'm the same way on the law. And I think that we both try our best to make this area of business that's not sexy something where people can at least get peace of mind on.
Yes. Yes.
And on that note, whether people, I don't know about how you deal with maybe, Cathy, people coming to you and asking for your services, and you can tell kind of quickly that they might not be a good fit yet, or they might not need your services yet.
Right.
And so a lot of people right now are turning into TurboTax and LegalZoom. I wanted to just touch on this for a brief while because I don't think either of these companies are like the enemy.
No, I used TurboTax when I was doing our own taxes, but
I love it.
I always, but in a way, like I knew how to answer the questions. I knew the information that they needed. So not necessarily a good comparison, but I did also have, somebody who's a bookkeeper come to me and she says, hey, I usually do TurboTax. Do you think I should continue to do it? Should I outsource it? I was like, honestly, like if you're a bookkeeper and you're on top of those things, you're like 95% of the way there anyways.
Yeah.
So for, TurboTax for you is probably a good choice, but for somebody who hates numbers, they don't want to stay on top of tax laws, they don't want to deal with any of that sort of thing, or they moved during the year. So there's multiple states involved. They started the business. They did something like the S Corp. We're going to get into that later. Or they're just busy and they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Maybe they should outsource it. And I mean, yeah, LegalZoom, that's a whole nother beast because it's, legal. So you
had some experiences with LegalZoom, didn't you?
God. Yes. So, I mean,
you don't have to share.
Yeah. So it wasn't me personally, but I did have a client come to me last minute. They had filed an extension for what turns out to be a C Corp. And she was like, hey, I thought I initially created an LLC with LegalZoom, but I have a corporation. What am I supposed to do with my taxes? And I already did our individual taxes. So I was like, take a deep breath. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. We'll sort it out. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but going back to what you said with TurboTax, LegalZoom is very similar, where essentially these products are well, and because they're essentially just form websites, if you don't know what the questions are really asking or how to answer them the right way, they're not analyzing anything on their end to fix.
Right. Yes.
And so and the other thing too is that it might help you, technically form the business, but there are still some steps to things, and maybe on the tax side as well, that
Yes.
they might technically help you get the thing done that you want to get done. But there might be other steps in terms of maintenance, responsibilities,
Yes.
ongoing work that you just assume these things are handling, and then you find out later that they're not.
Right. So wait, LegalZoom doesn't do your like board minutes and everything for you? And just like doing
We'll
all
get
those
into
like
that. This is the big question that I think a lot of people are tuning in for. Let's talk about the S Corp.
woo, let's go right through it.
People come to me all the time and they're like, Joey, someone recommended that I become an S Corp. Should I be an S Corp or an LLC?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, like an S Corp, you have to be something else in order to elect to be an S Corp. An S Corp isn't this like standalone entity by itself.
Yeah.
So
you don't form an S Corp.
You can elect to be an S Corp, but you're either going to be an LLC or, LLC or partnership, something that elects to be, an LLC, either a single one or a multi-member, could elect to be an S Corp, elect to be taxed as an S Corp because it's a taxation thing with the IRS, or you could be a corporation like a C Corp that you can elect to be taxed as an S Corp. It's not just you're going to go to the Secretary of State and say, I would like to be an S Corp. Like,
and I tell people all the time, because people say, hey, are there any legal ramifications to becoming an S Corp? And I say, no, it's not a legal thing at all.
Right.
So Stella really gets to the heart of this.
Here we go.
At what income level do you decide this? And Stella, this is one of those questions where the real answer is it depends, but we know that answer isn't really helpful. So we're going to try to provide some insight here.
Okay. So yes, like my big, my legal disclaimer basically is it depends, and talk with your CPA as one of them. But some people, okay, and the big it depends is because you have to look at a lot of different factors. One, what state are you located in? Because different states will tax corporations or entities that elect to be taxed as an S Corp differently. If you're in Tennessee, New York City, don't even bother because, your S Corp is going to be taxed at a higher rate. So any savings on the self-employment taxes, it might just wipe it out. So it might not even make sense.
That's really good to hear because I've never heard that side of things before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can share you a link for that if you want.
Cool.
So that, that's one thing. You also have to look at California. Oh, Thunder. Yeah, don't do it. Try California because, and here's another thing. So another California thing that you kind of have to keep in mind is in order to be an S Corp, you have to be at least an LLC or, a corporation that elects to then be taxed as an S Corp. And then in California, for that LLC, there's the whole franchise tax, everything that goes along with that. So you're looking at a minimum of like $800, just with that. So yes, you look at your income level, you look at your state, you look at, do you have other sources of income? Are you working part-time somewhere? Are you working full-time somewhere while also building a business? So are you paying into Social Security already? And then, how does that all kind of like come into play? Because that looks at, the whole self-employment taxes or, payroll taxes. So you kind of look at that. And then another thing to keep in mind is having an entity taxed as an S Corp is going to be more expensive. The S Corp tax return is more expensive than a Schedule C that's included in your individual tax return. So you want to make sure that those savings offset that additional cost. When you're an S Corp, you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary, which means you have to put yourself on payroll. You have to withhold payroll taxes. You have to remit those payroll taxes and do additional filings. There's additional fees associated with that. So, and then you look at, what is your reasonable compensation, which is, it takes several factors into account. What's the health of your business? What are your responsibilities with the business? What all do you do? Do you have other people that you hire? Is it, there are just a lot of payroll. No, exactly. So with payroll, that's just like a hassle. Yes, there are services like Gusto, which are fantastic. And it starts at like $45 a month and they take care of all of the filings and the tax withholdings, but that's just an additional cost. So yes, the break-even point, if you look at your net income, so your sales less any expenses, whatever that number is at the end of the day. Some people might say it could be 40,000, that net income before payroll, maybe, but it all depends on what some of those other costs are. Yep. And then, what you consider your reasonable compensation to be and how that would be taxed.
So I don't know the answer to this, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, Cathy, but if they just were unsure about whether or not they should elect an S Corp status, is there something that they could go sign up for on your site or call you? Could you provide like I can help you figure out if an S Corp is the right step for you, and if it is, I can help you make that election?
Yeah, we can certainly discuss that. Kind of like similar to you, I have, individual, consultations, I call it like a quick start session, where we can, dig into a couple things. And, if it does make sense to be taxed as an S Corp, we can go through, figure out that reasonable compensation, get you set up with payroll, that sort of thing. We can certainly do that.
Okay. So somebody, if they're interested in this, at the very least, as you can kind of see here, there's a lot of factors involved. Yeah. And it sounds like the best way to get an answer based on all of these factors. It's not like you can go on and read a blog and be like, well, I am yes, 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 no, no, yes, and so I should become an S Corp.
It's a lot of like, yes, 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 no, yes, but then still consult with somebody just to make sure, Yeah. So you can, like, for example, I was saying, Tennessee, there are certain things, or it's like if your net income is like 10,000, probably not gonna be a good thing. There are gonna be some like blatantly obvious things, but like when you start to get to that, like maybe it's 40, maybe it's 50,000 net income, maybe it makes sense, but then, I did have a client that was making that much with her business, but she also had a full-time job. So for her, instead of it being like 40,000, her break-even point was more like 80,000. So
okay, and that 40,000 or 80,000, you're talking about like revenue generated for the year.
Net income revenue for the year. So
net. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking like, you could have
money that comes into the business.
Well, you could have had $100,000 of sales, but then 60,000 of expenses. So that net number was 40.
Gotcha.
So we're talking like, what did the business make at the end of the day when you cover all of your expenses?
Good. Okay. So, I love hearing all this. Okay.
So many numbers.
So,
is there any? Let's see. What's this full question for Stella?
Let's hop it up here.
Okay.
Sorry, it kind of covers your face a little bit.
That's okay. Is any truth that your business can lose income for 3 years out of 5, but that you have to make money in order to be audited? Are you the okay? So what Stella's kind of getting at is the whole hobby versus income, or not hobby versus business. Classification. So, the IRS has a whole lot of different oh my gosh, what's even the, different things that factors that they look at to see if you do have a business versus a hobby. Yes, there is that one that talks about like, you should be operating in it. If it's a business, the activity should be operated for some sort of profit, and you want to have 3 out of 5 years of that profit. It doesn't necessarily mean that, that there's like an audit on the horizon. But then there are a whole lot of other factors that, come into play as well. Did you have a lot of upfront costs? Some of those first years, like farmers, like they're going to have a lot of initial costs before they get, any sort of, profit. It just takes time. But are you operating this activity like a business? Do you have separate business accounts? Do you have a checking account? Do you have a credit card? Are you registered as a business? Either, just starting off with like a DBA. Do you get an LLC? Are you working with other advisors and people who, like, if you don't know how to operate your business, are you working with people that can help you operate it? Are you treating it like, are you running it like a business? Are you doing different things to make it more profitable? Yeah. Changing your pricing, offering different products, different services. There are a lot of things that kind of like come into play. And Stella, you're also asking, there are a lot of companies operating at a loss, now more than ever. So some of that is, yes, there are startup costs involved, but you also have to look at things from an accounting perspective. We're talking like big companies like US GAAP, GAAP meaning like generally accepted accounting principles, not like go to the Gap and Banana Republic. They're doing things like, so how those sorts of businesses report their income are going to be different than, these solo, sure. Small businesses, because they have all these like, good. Yeah, it's not necessarily.
You guys, sorry, who's ever watching live, do us a favor and in the comments, just type in the number of years that you've been in business, whether that's 1 or 10 or 15. I think that can really help us kind of gauge who's currently watching live, and so that we can speak to them, because I know a lot of people in, for instance, our Facebook group are probably in their first year, maybe 2, maybe 3 of business. Yeah. So let us just give us the number 1, 2, 15, whatever, in the comments. Let us know how long you've been in business. And I think that might be able to help us transition or take what we're saying and apply it specifically to where most of you guys seem to be at.
Yeah.
On that note, I wanted to talk about quarterly taxes.
All right.
Because I think a lot of businesses are both excited about once they hear that it's something they can do. So if to a business that might be in their first year of business, do you recommend that they bother with quarterly taxes, or is there really not much experiential knowledge to file the quarterly taxes?
So once again, it's a bunch of, it depends.
Yeah.
And part of it depends on, what's the net income for your business. And, will you have to pay, certain taxes, throughout the year. From just a behavioral perspective, I always recommend that people, set aside money, throughout the year for their taxes. Best practice, yes, would be to make those quarterly estimated tax payments, even if it's just a little bit, so that you're not tempted to spend that money throughout the year.
Yeah.
You could be like, oh, Cyber Monday, there's this like great course. I think it's going to do all these great things for me. It's on sale for whatever, $500. I have $500 in my tax account. Oh, but this course will help me get more money and it'll be fine. No, it's for the IRS or for your state. Like, don't be tempted to spend money that you shouldn't be spending. So just from that perspective, I recommend doing that. Okay. And actually there's a great app called Capital. It's QAPITAL. that will automatically transfer money. You know, once you get client payments that come in, it'll automatically transfer that money into a different account. So you're not tempted to touch it.
That's super nice. Yeah, no, I brought someone on before. I think a couple of guests that I brought on the Indie show have talked about Profit First and how that's a really helpful resource for small businesses. And I know that one of those things is to set aside money as it comes in and put it into its own checking account or savings account, and that becomes something that you can add to, but you can't pull from.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, Profit First, I'd heard so many people read it or they were talking about it. So I was like, okay, must read the book, see what it's all about. I definitely like some of his practices. You know, having 5 different bank accounts spread over 2 different banks, that seemed a little bit much for me, but that's me personally. I'm a saver by nature versus a spender. Like, I do keep my QuickBooks up to date. So like I can see what's going on with my business. And I have the automatic transfers set up like to make quarterly tax payments. So for me, I was like, that seems a little bit much. But I did also like how he was talking about like focusing on the profit, you know, versus, you know, what's that number that you need at the end of the day to pay for, you know, your personal expenses, for, you know, saving for retirement, traveling, doing those other things. And then kind of like, okay, I know I'm bringing in this much of revenue. We got to do something with these expenses, or I got to do something to increase the revenue because some of these expenses, they're not going to go away. Like I need something.
Yeah, no, I was really glad that somebody connected me with the Profit First book right when I first started, because I think it gives someone who's not used to running a business a lot of confidence in like ballpark numbers.
Yeah.
And so being able to confidently say, I want to take home 50% of what I make until I hit a certain threshold. I don't think I would be brave enough to pull that from the business without a resource like that telling me it was okay.
Right. I mean, even me, and I was telling you, I'm a saver.
Yeah.
So like there, you know, yes, I made like this initial kind of like capital contribution into my business to make sure that I was like covering the expenses.
Sure.
Never touched that. Like I never touched it. But like I wanted to see my like bank account grow. But it wasn't until like recently I was like, okay, take some money out. It's okay. Like, yes, like I'm married, so we have other income coming in. So it wasn't as critical to, you know, move that money over, you know, immediately.
So, real quick, I just want to hit on that because I think I have a lot of empathy for people who are either trying to start a business, but they've got a really big safety net.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to push your way to success when you know that you don't have to try that hard to fall back on whatever.
Yeah. And that's,
And I also have a lot of empathy for people who like, it has to succeed.
Right.
Because then that you remove yourself from that emotional need to make this work. And so I think that based on the people that I've connected with, it's if you can figure out that blend where there's a little bit of safety net, but there's also a little bit of like
push.
Whoever the supplement is that's helping you is like, you have to hit this or else we're gonna have to talk.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. Since, you know, I'm risk averse, like I'm a CPA and my husband's in insurance, like, so we're just like risk averse people. Granted, you know, starting a business is, you know, some people think it's risky, but it is also like not risky because you're in control of your destiny. You know, I did, instead of just going from corporate world to self-employment, I did take I eased down and I worked for somebody part-time while building the business. Did that hinder my growth a little bit? Probably, because I was, you know, working for somebody else. So that took some of that time away that I could have been building my own business, but it took off some of the pressure as well. And then, you know, just going off of that, you need that pressure a little bit to, you know, to do it. So I told them, I'm with you through the end of the year. And so we gotta go. Like, let's do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And by the way, both Cathy and I are in Chicago. So if anybody is listening or watching, whether live or replay, just let us know if you're from Chicago, because I do have clients, and I think Cathy does too, that are outside of like the area. And
Yes.
the nice thing about working with creatives is you're kind of niched enough to where if it's a good fit, they don't have to be local.
Right.
But I also love being able to have local clients.
Yeah, it's fun to meet up for coffee.
Yeah, so let us know if you're in Chicago, and we'd love to meet up.
Yeah, we should do like a group thing.
That would be really fun. I also want to talk about the SMLLC, or the Single Member LLC.
Yes.
I think a lot of people who are watching fall in under this, where they're an LLC, they're the single member, or they're the sole owner of the business.
That's me.
Is there, other than the quarterly taxes and the S corp, are there any other like big things that you see in your world of accounting, taxes, bookkeeping that a single member LLC owner should be thinking about?
So, I mean, kind of like backing up, like even getting to that single member LLC, people will say, I'll see this in Facebook groups. I'll have this on calls with prospective clients, and they're like, I'm going to form an LLC. Like, what does this mean for taxes? And I'm like, unless you make this additional election to be taxed as an S corp, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. Yes, your Schedule C is going to have this other business name, and if you file and you get an EIN, which is free with the IRS, which is kind of just like your social security number for your business, there's not that big of a difference. You're still going to file your taxes on Schedule C. You're still going to pay self-employment taxes on everything, all of your like net income, well, up to a certain point, blah, 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 Social Security. But in general, you're going to pay, self-employment taxes, your regular income taxes on your whole like profit from the business. So really, there's not that big of a difference.
Okay. No, that's good to hear. So just keep in mind that if you make that jump from a sole proprietor to an LLC to get those legal liability protections on the tax side, unless you elect otherwise, you're still treated as a sole proprietor.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it just flows through on your individual tax return, and it's just all there.
Easy.
Granted, the whole tax reform thing might change all of this, but this is as of November 30th. Tax laws haven't changed. So if it does later, if you're listening to this live later, listen to it with a grain of salt. Speaking
of law changes and the fact that we're both in Illinois, I wanted, and you can probably speak to this more than I because you sent it my way, but there is changes in the legislature that's going to significantly lower the cost of forming an LLC in Illinois.
Yes.
Do you have any insight on like how likely that is to pass and when?
I don't know. I'm really hoping it's before the end of the year, because one of my LLCs is up and I usually have to renew it in December. So, so I'm not exactly
sure. So the renewal fees will also be lower?
What? I think it was the initial filing fee and the renewal fee.
Nice. Okay.
So, I mean, that's like one of the things that people will talk about. We had this conversation about, attorneys will say, oh, because of the filing fees, you should just be a corporation versus an LLC because it's so much cheaper to be a corporation. And they have more forms and different things that they have to do. So their fee is going to be a little bit higher to form a corporation versus an LLC. But then you as the business owner, you have a lot more responsibilities that you have to stay on top of as well. So does it make sense to save a couple $100 to do all these additional things? Probably not.
Yeah. No, I tell people that unless you are looking to get funding from your business, be an LLC. And if you're looking for funding, just be a Delaware corporation.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's go get on to the fun part. I know everything we've talked about has been really fun already.
It's all fun. Aren't we laughing?
But before we went live, we were talking a lot about different apps that you use and recommend. Can you tell us more about, first off, when it comes to the bookkeeping side of things? I use QuickBooks.
Yes.
I know you like QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online. Is that when people are looking for kind of I know it kind of tiers off depending on what people's needs are, but I won't say it for you. When people ask you what application to use for the bookkeeping side, how do you
Yeah.
typically respond?
So everybody has a favorite kid, even though they won't say it necessarily. When it comes to bookkeeping and accounting software, I would say QuickBooks Online is my favorite. Not really sure. I don't know. It just seems I've just used it more with more people, so that's probably I'm just more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I like it really from a tax and accounting perspective, where you can actually go through and you can reconcile your accounts. You can, yeah, there are apps and things that sync up with that as well. I mean, it's so common. Like that's going to be, if you're using all sorts of other softwares and, apps, a lot of them will sync up. Any apps, yes. Square and PayPal, I know they work, with QuickBooks Online. Xero is another great one. And both softwares are good because, as I was saying, you can reconcile your accounts. So you can actually see that the bank balance is what's the book balance, what's actually in QuickBooks. And then if that bank feed has broken, you can figure out what's going on. If it's missing things, double counting, you can fix it. And then it's got that double entry accounting. So, we're talking about people who are taxed as an S Corp. It gets a little bit more complex. And you want to make sure that you're tracking that basis, the equity and everything. So you want the ability to do that. People will talk about FreshBooks when it comes to invoicing and accounting. I think it's great for invoicing. Yep, Xero with an X. Xero is good. So FreshBooks is good for invoicing. I wouldn't use it for bookkeeping, especially when you need that balance sheet or you want to reconcile things, because their balance sheet is basically the same as just writing it on an envelope or on the back of a napkin. It's not good. I know other people like Wave. I think it's free, or at least free to start. It's pretty good. It's better for those, businesses that are just starting out, but it gets a little wonky when it comes, like if you're pulling money out of the business, that member draw, it'll count it as an expense versus something on the balance sheet. So that it's a little glitchy. You have to kind of adjust for that. So, I would say QuickBooks Online and then Xero. Those would be my top two.
Okay. And one of the other things that we talked about was integration. And you said that like all these apps integrate with stuff. And so shout out to Dubsado. I use Dubsado for a lot of things. And they do have an integration with QuickBooks. I don't use the integration, and I want to explain why for some people. If you use QuickBooks, but everything that you do within QuickBooks, you kind of do through Dubsado, then you should go ahead and keep that integration up because it syncs in that direction. But I don't know of many apps that do like a bi-directional integration.
Like sync back or whatever.
Yeah. So if you spend a lot of time actually in QuickBooks and you're making changes, those changes might not bounce back into those other apps that you're using. And so if either you or your bookkeeper are really living in QuickBooks mostly, it's probably a best case scenario to just steer clear of those integrations. Just so that things, you're not worried about things not looking right if you make changes. Someone mentioned GoDaddy.
You just have to see what you're doing. So
do you have any experience with GoDaddy bookkeeping?
I don't. I do know somebody. So one thing that kind of like got started me on this journey. There's a conference for financial bloggers called FinCon, and so I know different bloggers will review different systems, different apps, and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure somebody said they like started using GoDaddy at one point. I think it was great for XYZ things, but then later they kind of changed. So it might be good to start off, but I haven't used it personally, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, no, but I think that there's some truth to like finding apps that do what they do very well instead of having some apps that try to do everything. Be helpful. But it's good to see you, Anne. Thanks for tuning in. So Cathy, I wanted to wrap it up. I think that we had a lot of really good content here. If anybody wants to follow up or is interested in having a conversation with Cathy to continue these topics, go ahead and just write, I'll type it up in the thing here, write call C, write that in the comments, and then that way Cathy will know to go back, and if there's any comments, she'll follow up with you guys.
Perfect.
It's really nice to know everything kind of under that umbrella that is people who are in that space working specifically for creatives. And the fact that you know, even your explanation of those different apps, I think was in a lens of, you know, here are the good options for creatives. So thanks, Cathy, for coming. Let us know in the comments if you guys have any other questions, and we'll try to respond after the live video is done, and you know, maybe give you guys some resources if we can. But Cathy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have coffee with you again sometime. And that's it for the Indie Show, you guys. We'll see you later. All right. Thanks again, Cathy. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.